Pokazują, że już, to znaczy, że już.
Tell me we're ready, so
Dzień dobry,
we're ready.
witamy Was
Welcome
serdecznie na czwartkowych wykładach
during
17.
the
edycji
Thursday, the
Filmu
third
Spring
day of
Open.
Film Spring Open.
Tak jak
As
Sławomir
Sławomir
Idziak zapowiadał na
announced
początku,
at the beginning, the
produkcja jest w tym
production
roku
is-
takim
production
hasłem
is the
przewodnim,
buzzword of this
takim
year.
bardzo ważnym tematem,
keyword.
wokół
The
którego
topic around which
rozmawiamy
we'll
pod
be
względem
talking
kreatywnym, pod
on the
względem
creative
biznesowym
side,
i Krzysztof
business side,
Terej
and
będzie
Krzysztof
opowiadał
Terej will be
o
talking
pieniądzach
about money
po
today.
prostu.
Just
To
about money.
wszystko na
And
przykładach
all that based on
produkcji
examples
Watchout
of,
Studio, a
the
konkretnie
productions
Sztuki
of
Kochania
Watchout Studio, The Art
i
of
Ukrytej Gry
Love
to są dwa
and
filmy,
the
które
Coldest Game,
sporo
the two
zamieszania
films
zrobiły
that,
w ostatnich latach,
were
a Apokawixa Cezarego
made
Żuławskiego właśnie do kin
a lot
teraz
of fuss
wchodzi, dosłownie
recently.
weszła.
And
To jest
Apokawixa,
na
I think
dniach,
it's
więc
getting big. It will
rzecz
be in the
nowa.
cinemas
Zostawiam Was
within a
w
few
dobrych
days.
rękach.
It's a
i
new
życzę
thing, it's a good
przyjemnych
thing, and I leave
zajęć.
you in
Do
good
zobaczenia.
hands. And I wish you a pleasant time.
Teraz?
Is that okay? Yes. Thanks, sir. Hello, everybody. My name is Krzysztof Terej. I'm currently the head of Watchout Studio and the producer because I have two functions in there. For the first time, I'm giving such a lecture, so please be understanding, and I would prefer that also to be a free discussion. I prepared some slides. However, this is not a centimeter by centimeter, slide by slide presentation. I would rather share with you how we work as Watchout Studio, what kind of company we are, and go through the examples of our recent productions, how we do it, where we put a stress, what is important for us, and I would like to share some of those projects with you. Each of those projects, each our film so far, has been very different from one another, and every film is a totally different adventure, totally different configuration. You know perfectly well that film is a lot of work, it's a teamwork, and those people, starting from the directors through script writers, set designers, DOPs, they differ from one another a lot. And I think right now this is our increased strong side, because production is a collection of experiences. The more experience we have, the more we can deal with different situations, the more we can prevent some errors, we can eliminate a lot of errors on the early stage and not then tackle them on the filming set. I will tell you about some key things that we've survived and experienced on the way. So please ask questions, raise your hands, let's talk about everything. I do not know this by heart, so let me sit sort of side to side, slightly on the side and see the slides. What can we say about us as Watchout? At the moment where we are on our professional path, we are a multi-awarded studio. We get a lot of good feelings from the audience. Right now we're standing on three strong legs. From the very beginning it was our strategy. Piotr Woźniak-Starak, the founder of our studio, his dream was this to be film production. But obviously from our perspective it's difficult to survive if you're a production house. It's a different thing when you're a producer, it's a different thing when you're managing a production house. So from the very outset, when we made the God's films, we decided to go into commercials. It's our second strong leg, and the third one is the TV series. So we're in parallel we're producing these three things. The presentation is in English. That's how we were asked. So I will be polonizing this. However, you will see all the information here. When I joined the company in 2012, there were 4 people. In 2019, there were 13, 14 people, and since that time, yes, after the death of Piotr Staras, we had a lot of change, a lot of rotation. 3, 4 people left, and 12 people came. We decided to develop, change the directions. We had to change the strategy because otherwise, it's different when you work in two people teams, and it's different when you're left with a strategy with whole company. So I decided to develop, especially the commercial department. It's been 3 people, now it's 12 people, and we decide to combine people who have different competencies and experiences. And so somebody's, let's say, in commercial department and is able to do our marketing, our social media, prepare presentations for us. So this takes off a lot of burden from me. So then I can focus on something else as a CEO. So when I entered the CEO, this was my hobby horse. I was the PowerPoint guide and keynote guide, and we were able to work in 3 guys with everything. So right now it's a big relief for me that I do not have to prepare those presentations myself, because I would have to work it full time. Do it full time. There's so many presentations in commercial side, the TV shows and feature films. So that's how we select those people. And also the needs of our company. We had to develop the accounting, administrative part, and financial part. So these are the elements where we use all of that on the ongoing basis. When it comes to the films, my adventure of one of the producers on The Gods, a co-producer, we decided to work with Piotr Starak on the marketing projects. I am a lawyer by profession. I was not fascinated by this. After 3 internships in law firms, I decided to go into marketing professionally. So I went into a post-grad course. I met with Piotr Starek, and that's where my marketing experience was very much needed at the very early stage of The Gods. And Piotr suggested, because he had his own point of view on our distributors and their promotion and what this looks like in our country, because we're live, I can't tell you too much about that. However, we are not live. Okay, thanks. Let me say. That was one of the best. We are live. Yes. In 2 languages. No, sorry, guys. Let me tell it like that. You can draw your own conclusions. We, when working on The Gods, The Art of Loving, and The Coldest Game, and I will talk about that in a while, when we're moving around the marketing domain, the promotion of films, as well as collecting the funds, because collecting money for the funds also starts at the moment when you have to prepare some materials. We do not have still frames from the film. We do have all the decisions made, and we have to convince people that it's worth to invest in that film. It's no secret, when we were working on The Gods, we had like 13, 14 meetings about the financing. Since then, like this number has been decreasing every time, like 3-4 times, less and less meetings to found every next film. So the first films, 3 weeks before the premiere of the film in Gdynia, we didn't have the budget complete. The last money was fulfilled by the president of Zabrze, and it was like 50,000 zlotys. This was the amount of money we couldn't collect from the market, and it took ages, and we couldn't finish that. And Piotr suggested 2 things. He suggested that I would start from the start, before the promotion. Let's package that, make a presentation. Let's think how Professor Religa should be presented to the Polish people in a fresh way, because that was 2013. And from our observations and our discussions, Professor Religa was usually, the people thought about him as a minister of health. He was not considered to be the person fighting for transplantology in Poland, but as a politician. So it was a certain load which we had to tackle with. We looked for a trigger which would switch the attention of the people. We wanted to tell the story about those 2 years, that it will not be a politics, his later life. It's only a human story. And the second element was the financing. And when we entered the shooting stage, there was just a distributor. We didn't even have a Polish Film Institute at that time. They joined at a later stage, and only then further partners started to join. And many of our current business partners did not believe in The Gods, and one of the partners was TVN broadcaster, and they said, no, sorry, we reject that film, and we did not get any co-production input from them. Only when the film was ready and the people changed in TVN, and they bought the license, and that's a different sort of participation. I will talk about that in a moment. So I understand. Sorry. So the distributor entered with his MG, and this 300-400 meetings that you had, these were meetings with investors. Yes, these were all sorts of investors, private investors, corporations, state-owned companies, private companies, all range that you can imagine. No matter what company that would be, we were there. But you do have investors in there, don't you? Can you say who was the investors? Which one of those entities in the film? Yes, they were like totally different people on the extreme sides of the spectrum. I don't remember which films were that exactly, but I think it was like a full mix. Private investors who, for example, had some family plans to, for example, for the son to work in a film, up to investment funds who just looked at the return on investment and the time when this return will take place. So it was more difficult for them with the film because you can. So, for example, they could be added at the end of the production of the film because they have to sort of freeze the money, yes, and they're you have to balance the risk from the point of view. And about those stocks, what was the moment of the turning point? Did you show them some estimation of the future returns of the film, or did you sort of evade this, selling just the story? No, you always have to have the business model because this is a business endeavor. Film is something that has to have very strong legs. One is the content. Why would people go to the film? Or what is the story? Does it engage the person on the other side of the table, or does he say, well, yes or no, I wouldn't go? But then you have stand no chance. But if they say, yeah, I knew the professor, that was an important story for me. Individually, I can see your approach. I'm interested in that period. But what are the numbers? How many viewers have to see that in a cinema? From the point of view of budgets of Polish films in the years 2013, 2022, that changed in a very strong way, in a dramatic way. The gods were 2,050,000, The Art of Loving 6,050,000, The Coldest Game was 15,090,000, and that was the premiere of Bogowie 2014, The Art of Loving 2017, The Coldest Game, the shooting was 2018, and the premiere was 2019. The prime time, which had only 4 actors, and it was shot in 2020, it was 4,900,000, and it was like 1 million cheaper than The Gods, which was a historical film and a lot of objects, a lot of locations, etc. I can't tell you how much Apokawixa costed because it had no support from PISF, but it's the budget is around the first films. During such a meeting, so you promise a certain number of viewers at the very outset. You show them, for example, the possibility of selling the license. I show the whole business model. I have to take into account when I was working on the gods. I had a very strong thing, which is not anymore in our business models, are the DVD. Nextfilm was one of our distributors. We knew that Nextfilm is they're in one capital group with Gazeta Wyborcza, and they had like this open relation that it was clear that a DVD disc, which will be added to Gazeta Wyborcza, will have a certain amount of DVDs. Yes, it's like several 100,000. Of course, we never knew how much of that will sell, but when we already knew that the film was good, for example, we were after the premiere in Gdynia, the reception was good, but we were still looking for the money. The same goes with the viewers. We had to about 550 to 600,000 people seeing this film in a cinema to get the return on investment. So there was pay TV, there was no Netflix at that time, there was not spectacular one-time sales. You had to get those sales windows set up between the partners. The Art of Loving was an even more interesting partner. There was an Orange as a partner, and Netflix bought it at the end. And how do you get them all together so that they can share those investment windows, and who will be first, who will be after whom, and at what time? I must say that was the most nervous time. At the end of the day, there was a lot of discussion, and we solved it like this: that the partner who has a bigger co-production investment share, he believes this product, not only buys the license, but he also invests. They have the priority. If nobody believes in the project, they just buy the licenses. The one who pays more has the priority. We have to measure it. Unfortunately, we have to ask everybody for this money, and we do not feel very well because if we treat them politically incorrectly, we would not get the money the next time. But at the moment when a private investor enters with some big amount of money, are you ready with this puzzle of yours, I know that every case is different. Can you put it somebody in the very beginning of this corridor? No, we never do that. We believe that, of course, there are different philosophies of production, and I met different models in Poland. Our model, which works the best, is like in the companies. We are not creating a dedicated SPV. We have like an enterprise where everybody has an equal amount of shares, apart from this traditional way, which is that if the film institute if the film institute has its share, we return the GPNA, then shares, and then the institute starts to be paid back, and everybody's earning at that stage. I have a question about this initial moment. How did you go out to the investors with Watch? What was the base with which you started to encourage them to work with you? And the second question, this return, was it already attractive for them, or was it that also already at this level wanted to get engaged, or everybody just was talking about getting a return on investment? It's a very interesting thing, because people who finance films, from our experience through those X films and many configurations, they differ a lot. The majority treats it like as an investment. And of course, you have the corporations, which when you work on the gods, you say, I have 1 million viewers. It's impossible. We won't enter that, because you do not understand what your product is like. If you think that it can have 1 million viewers, another corporation to whom I come and I show them the presentation, I said 600,000 viewers will get money from this, that, and that. He said, Krzysiek, we can't do that like that. If you say that we invite 10 to 15%, we can't even enter this, because the risk is like this big, and you propose like this small return on investment. So you have to have an individual approach to everybody. Every film differs depending on how hot the topic is, how timely it is, how we can support with other titles from the same category in the recent time, which are successes. These are my recent lessons. For the business partners like things which are similar to things that were successful. Unfortunately, this is a vicious circle in our business. We want to get out of it. We have a different approach. Today, in 2022, there are so many partners. You have more and more platforms, many institutions which are financing the films, that our philosophy today is that we have to develop projects that we believe in. Because if we we start to adapt things to others, then it's worse all the time, and let's say we lose with somebody who did it their own way, because the partner has changed, and the person who dealt with us is not working there anymore, and somebody else was selected, and we invested a year of our time. So I think it's always about getting adapted, being flexible, and seeing the moment where we're at. So each of those moments, each of those films was in their individual time. Prime Time had the biggest problem with collecting money, not because Piotr died, and we had a lot of fears whether the company will carry on, but it was about the pandemics. And the pandemic, in which this distributor who always cooperated with us, and he said he pulled out as the first one. He said, you won't shoot that. If you can't shoot that, nobody will go to the cinema. I said, no, this is a small film, it's a pandemic film, because everybody's stopping, and that means that there won't be any films, and this film will be needed by someone at some point. We can't tell you exactly today, but because we're in the beginning of the pandemics, nobody will know what will happen. But we, in a very sustainable way, we decided that you have to make this film despite the pandemic, despite all the bad conditions, and the Film Institute also said, you can't do that in pandemic. I got information from other distributors, it won't work. I said, no, our film is small, close-knit, small crew, small cast. You can do that. And it was like three months of struggling, and we entered the set. And this film worked. And the same distributor who said, you can do it, 4 months later, he was buying from another distributor at the last stage to enter the project. And this has ended also in such a way that it was financed by TVN, distributor at the Institute, but the premiere was on Netflix. And there was, of course, a plan to have it in the cinema, but since the pandemic, and because after the set, that it would enter some serious window, and we would get some return on investment. The premiere of Prime Time, why it got on Netflix? Because it got to Sundance, and for Netflix that was something special, some exotic that a film from our region gets into such an important international festival in a pandemic world where paradoxically a lot of films were held back, which were not. There are like 10,000 applicants, and suddenly you got a Polish film there. For us, it was a great recognition, and we made a focus groups. That's what we always do with our films, because we know from the very beginning, from the time of the gods, that what we believe about, we know about the film, about the character, about the assumptions. Then it changes in the process. We lose our distance to that, and we get something that was supposed to fulfill the assumptions, and it's different. It's not worse. Quite often it's better, but we have to relearn it, and we have to understand what we have. And without getting that distance, we're not able to see it from that perspective, because each one of them is burdened by a lot of stories, sympathies, antipathies, private things. That this person was cheeky, and nobody of the viewers sees that, because and we're seeing that this film starts like this, that there shouldn't have been like this, they shouldn't have been like that. I lost my train of thought, so we can move on. You were talking about focus groups. I think it was also very interesting for us, because on focus groups, people are very divided between the older and younger. We always make focus groups on like small groups, but on very specific groups. We select people who, during the last 2 years, saw certain Polish titles in cinema, which were interested in as our benchmark. Quite often they're pretty far away from each other. It's difficult to say that viewers who would go to The Art of Loving are interested in those, are the same people who saw Jack Strong. But for us, the people who saw Jack Strong were important for me for us in the context of Art of Loving. So we divided them into older, younger. We divided them between the prime time, the gods, The Art of Loving, the Coldest Game. We would divide them to 24-39 and 40-60. And with prime time, we knew that it's a film for younger people, and we decided to take much younger focus groups up to and all previous films we could between 0 and 10 got a difference based on the 1 to 2 points in age groups. Here we have a difference of 3 to 4 points, and it was a huge difference. For young people it was supposed to be a very good film, and for the older people it's totally unaccepted. If we had the situation before, we would edit this film to try to catch all those people that are painful for those more experienced viewers, to get it to the level 6.5 or 7. And here we had a very strong decision. No, there are people who are happy with that film, just like the selectionists of Sundance, young people. Let's leave it as it is. You can't interfere with that. And these two facts, Sundance plus focus groups, and the third fact, the closed cinemas during the premiere, that was a matter of negotiation. What are the amounts for the platform, for the distributors, how much this film is worth? And I'm always repeating that, because that's what I can say. Remember, these are all negotiations. There is no set table with no partner. There are no limits. With those films, we experience that a lot. Whatever they say, it's always a negotiation, and it's always a negotiation of window and sharing and the time of the license, and in the consequence, the amounts. I wanted to ask a question. I understand that when you're talking to the investors, it's about money. Do you have situations like this that
nigdy nie wygrają, ale że miały znaczenie, jakieś takie inne rzeczy.
That other things than money were important, like ideological topics or faith or people were more like more human factors when people decided, okay, let's do that. I think that this is the foundation, that to catch somebody emotionally, to engage them in your story, to understand why it is important that it will be created, because the options for investing money better than a movie, I mean, there are plenty of them. It's a long list. That's how I would sum up. We're never attractive as an investment. We're always seen as huge huge risk. So in a way, this human element, engaging in a story, convincing, and not like a corporate Excel calculation, this is the key. Why do we believe that as producers? Why does it catch us? Why does it grasp us? And does it also grasp our interlocutor? Because otherwise it's not possible. It's not possible otherwise. Especially in a world as unstable as it is, it's difficult to talk about the condition of cinema. I cannot refer to that. I can see the results of films. You can see the viewers are coming, the audience are coming. But is our offer is attractive for them? You can talk about this for ages, but what will be the final financial results in 2 years when we finish the film? We can't say that. It's impossible to forecast if there is no emotional engagement and the human conditions.
To ja bym poprosił tylko dalej jeszcze dać slajdy.
Okay, can we get on with because I wanted another slide. Yes, focus group.
Jeszcze dalej, poproszę jeszcze dalej.
Oh, it's here.
Okej, chciałem zapytać
I wanted to ask,
czy materiał jest prezentowany już
is the material presented in the final version, so to speak? And this focus group is under NDA, or how are these people found for those focus groups? One thing is that this group is collected by a company. We use ABMPL agency. It's not a big company. It's not a big player that you will see on the news with some huge results. It's a marketing research company which has very precise products at very sort of considerate money, because film promotion usually costs $500,000 or $1 million for promotion. Then it's worth to pay, let's say, several thousand zlotys. Maybe it's good to understand better your product. So that's the first thing when it comes to NDA. The second one, it's the most difficult part. We came to a point when it comes to the film, it's best for us to work if we have 1 year from ending of the shooting until the premiere. This is the perfect time for us because we devote 2, 3, 4 months for preparing 2, 3 versions, because it's different with every director. Let's say we say, okay, this is a version where you still have to hone it, but we feel good that we won't get too much more out of it. So let's add some color, some reference music, let's add some sound so that people know what's happening there. In the ideal world, and in case of Gods, it was so. It was the most advanced film which we put under focus groups. These were the first focus groups. We didn't believe in them too much. No, it's warped. It's biased. It can't be that good. And we were undermining the focus groups results instead of taking all the out of it. And it saved that. I mean, actually, the focus group, they saved that in key things. With the Gods, there was the least intervention in the film after the focus groups, and the two things that stayed, and one thing is that the viewers noticed that at that stage, the alcohol. They said that's too much. There's too much alcohol with the professor. They said it's a film about an alcoholic who tries to do something, and our task was to say, okay, let's rewatch that film in peace, with a distance, with such an approach, and we noticed it ourselves. Yes, this scene could be deleted. That he drinks this here alone in a bar between the situations, and this story will work fine. And when at the end the professor falls down in the hotel, we could have 5 minutes of alcohol libation or 1 minute. And these two tricks, deleting one scene and shortening the other scene, that made in further focus groups, people did not notice alcoholic. They saw a film about a great person, a fantastic hero who fought for our lives, but he had his weaknesses. And it changes everything, because we either splash this alcohol around and we roll in the alcohol, or we say, okay, we have situations like that in our country, we understand people better around us. So these are the things. The second thing was our typical error, because we as young people, I was like 29 at that time, Piotr was 33, we believed that Professor Religa is a national hero. That was the time when you made films about national heroes. And the first focus group said, he's not a national hero. And that was the time when Steve Jobs was in vogue. And in Poland, innovation was very trendy in Poland. And he's an innovator. He's not a national hero, he's an innovator. And then it's something that we, as the production house, at the stage of production, we use PR agencies and we set up a communication strategy for the movie. And that's very important. When later you talk to the journalists, you provide to them the first press release. Who was that? Who are you making the film about? And you speak differently about a guy like Steve Jobs, and they go to the screening and they see it and they write about it differently. And it's different when you try to tell them something that they do not believe, and they say it's not right, and they have to find the right words themselves. But here you give them the true point of departure or the key to the film. It's also our philosophy. You can cheat the viewers. You can say it's a great comedy, and you get something else. As a young silly viewers, I was taken in by Drogówka, the road police, and I was shocked. I went there because I got in the promotion that it's a great comedy, and I went there and I went through the shock, and it stayed with me that I wouldn't want to have my viewers being cheated by us. That people, I wouldn't want my people. It's like it's not a situation like in a restaurant, where you buy something, it's cold, and you don't pay. In this case, you bought the ticket, somebody cheated you, and do you feel okay with you spending the money, or do you feel cheated by the people, by the cinema? If you feel cheated, you will write about it on the internet, and you will find other people, and then you get the snowball effect. I have a question and an observation too. When I was preparing this packaging for my film, The Songs of Love, and I said that it's a sweet and sour story, I got this information everywhere that it's a sweet and sour story, so you have to be very careful. And tell me, when you will prepare this promotional package and the strategy for promotion, you go to this distributor. How do you talk to the distributor? Because you do have your own idea. You tested it, and the distributor says, "Yeah, but we have a different concept." How do you talk with them here? If you had this low trust to distributors, it's even worse. This trust doesn't grow. It works the other way around. The systemic problem, if you ask for my private opinion as a producer, and the challenge of today's world with the results of the cinemas, etc., that one of the weakest links are distributors and their strategy. The fact that they employ people full-time, let's say the graphic designers. If they have one graphic designer who does all the posters throughout the year, how you, as a producer, when you get into such factory and you've worked on that 3-5 years, for you it's one of the most important things for this decade of your life. For them, it's just like it's in the factory, one of the 30 things that they will mince over that year. And this poster, they say, this poster is okay, and we were in tears that, well, how can you do that? But the distributor says, I couldn't work like that, because I would pay your artist colleagues, art directors, etc. for every poster. I would go past, but you know that the poster does not sell, and then we go into muddy waters of what the distributor says sells and what it doesn't sell. Once we had this huge research to make arguments for this and to understand it, but I must say that you would have to do it every year. It changes so fast, and that was one of our biggest shocks with prime time. When we made our own session, we selected our own poster. We thought that it's the only way of promotion. Netflix was very okay at that time. They behaved very, very okay at that time. They have international marketing teams who approach the things right, and they said, listen, all the decisions here are made not based on the video material, mainly based on the posters, and they will not be your posters. We will include you as the 3 out of 10, and I will show you the statistics, how your posters work. And a month after the premiere, I had this meeting, and they showed me presentation, full statistics. You can see everything, how people in which moment, for example, logged out, or which poster worked well, so what in our focus group we did at this early stage of the platforms, we knew that the poster was 3% of the decision-making process. It's an element that Google says, okay, it cannot push you back and says, okay, it's not a good poster, and will it encourage me? No, I need to see the trailer in FilmWeb. That was the result of our focus groups in 2018, but 2021, when they showed me the statistics, and they say, okay, the trailer does not matter at all. They see every person who enter the trailer, they can see how long they watch the trailer and how long they switch to the next one. And when they showed us the posters, we knowing that big face of Bartek Bielenia, his eyes, it has to work. No, it didn't work anymore. Magda Popławska as number 1, and some gun and Bielenia in the background, something not in our aesthetics, something that we would never do, and 60-70 people would select that one, and ours were below 1%. And then I understood, okay, we do not know better than Netflix what works better with him. But it is a partner about whom I have to say, when it comes to sharing marketing information and doing marketing, they can sell it the best. You can leave it alone as a producer. But with our distributors, it's a very tough thing. It requires a lot of trust to distributor that they will say, okay, you can prepare your communication strategy, your production strategy, but in our budgets. So our P&A is divided in such a way. And then it occurs that you cannot work with people you wanted to work on the strategy. You cannot employ the graphic designers you want to work with. But then you can, you can convince them, and they do it for 1/5 of the standard fee, but it brings results. And we saw that in the other way around. The graphic designers we suggested for the gods, they made the logo of the film, they did 5 or 10 other productions of distributor, and then the distributor said, okay, they're not so ingenious, it's not this. The same with the author of the trailer. And then he made a number of orders for them, and our trailers are made by one and the same person, starting from the gods through prime time to Apocalypse. I believe that it's a matter of selecting the lineup for a given situation. We didn't want to use the same graphic designers for the gods and the Art of Loving. We knew it's a totally different story. It's a woman's story directed by a woman. You have to approach women. You have to show the aesthetic side. You have to come up with in a very difficult story where the element of scenography and the costumes, because our protagonist can take out of the curtain and put it on herself, and then the same pattern can be on the poster. Then we have to get some people together. We invited Olga Osadzińska as an art director. Well, art director, there are different definitions of that in Poland, in the West. In our definition, that was supposed to be a person who would help us communicate with costume design, with set design, and the promotion. How to combine all that so that it's aesthetically coherent and pleasing and attractive, so that it's not detached from one another. And it was all designed from the scratch. It was honed to the level that even the book that you saw, which was of Art of Loving, which was renewed, you have to also be very aware when you're building a business model and encourage the partners. There are always additional options which can help a lot business-wise in this situation. We knew that the rights to this book has expired because nobody published this book since 1990s, and we went to the distributor and said, listen, this might be another source. This could be additional money for promotion, and said, let's publish the book again. And this republished book, I mean, people would buy it immediately. They would go out of the cinema, go to Empik, and they would buy the book. They were not able to print the book so much. It was not even so. Finally, 320,000 people, 320 copies were sold. 320,000 copies were sold out, and it was a book which initially had like 30,000 copies in the first edition. So with Apokawixa, if it was our product, the first thing I would come up with is the game, the video game. You know, zombie, blah blah blah. How we could come up with this game on the online computer, like tabletop or laptop. I mean, PC game or a mobile game. But this is how my thought would come. But if distribution goes bad, independently, let's say there's something wrong, pandemics, war, many things could happen that we have no impact on, and that can always take place. So let's now talk about the focus group. Let's go through the slides. Let's go one slide further. What are the expectations before the film? The younger audience and the older audience, what they expected about this is about art of loving, but I think it will be even better. The next slide will be much more interesting. These are very important sliders, because I think for us the most important slider is the second one. Is it worth referring? Would you refer it to someone? It's one of the most important things you ask during focus group, and we had everything from I would not recommend it to anyone. And the Coldest Game, yes, my uncle is watching such films in nighttime about Cuban crisis, etc. I'd recommend it to him. But if it would be as with the God, that I would take everybody to see that film, that's a great signal. That means that you managed to do better, that it combines several generations and brings together several groups of people. But the basic is, yes, I would go with a friend and let's say with a husband, with a wife. It's best when they say they would go with their friends, because it's a social situation, and it's not directed at one viewer, but they will collect a group of people who drew her to writing and then publishing his book. And how could you say that it was sort of it happened over 30 days, like different types of script, retrospective, linear, we have no time. So when we finish that topic, but I would really love to hear how you write on the script. To what extent is film then coherent with or in line with the script, or how much does it go away? Okay, very quickly I will tell you that these are huge differences, and I must tell you that the producer's work has a sense. Every 2 years I look at into the drawer where I have all first drafts of the script, and I love to open the first side and the last page. Oh, okay, yes, there were two guys here, and it was supposed to end like this. No, it's good that we didn't follow the script. So we follow the philosophy, which means that the film is being created 3 times. First, that's a full remark towards the script. It's easiest for us right now to work on short forms. We don't go anyone further if we are not happy with one page. When one page is happy, let's develop the story to 10 pages. We have a biopic which has been with us for 3.5 years, and 1.5 years was devoted just to treatment, and it's worth it because later in the script you have much less. If we have this fight acted out with the script writer and the director in a short form, then the further work is much easier.
Halo.
So we all know what's happening, what we do, what are the intentions, what we still struggle with, what is still a problem for us, and then somebody else from the outside reads it and says, okay, this is not a problem, you get fixated on that, but this and that will be a problem, you have to go through that and you have to develop that, etc. So on short forms we approach the script, then we close the script in many different forms, going through the projects. The Gods had 5-6 drafts, The Art of Loving has 8-9 drafts, Coldest Game had 6, Primetime had 4-5 drafts, and Apokawixa had 3 drafts. So every project you can see it's less and less, and our next biographical film has 6 feature drafts, and we rewrote it into a TV series due to the times we're living in.
Ja mam takie pytanie.
So I do have a question. It's all very interesting what you talk about. But how, in relation to these focus groups and what does the cooperation look like between the director and the producer? Who has the last word? And how do you have it inscribed that the focus group decision is the most important because the film has to say? Because we all know that quite often the artist, the director, has to get fixated and get stubborn about something, you know? Do you have, and would not budge on something, do you have such situations? Does it happen? Yes, it's an ideal question because the truth is, let me go back to my part to my sort of starting point. Every person is a totally different case. Every cooperation was totally different. Of course, we had guys who were getting tragic over things, but it was written down in the contract when you're writing down the contract with the director. It's a question of configuration, because if you had Gods or The Art of Loving, these were projects which were created at home in our studio in Watchout. And then we invited the directors. We got 2 rejections, and Łukasz was the right person, like a bullseye, a perfect person for such a story, for such a protagonist. Marysia Sadowska also took part in a competition where we had 4 directors coming, and we then spoke with all of them. We got them the second or third draft of the script, and they said, come back to us and tell us how do you understand the story and what sort of films do you want to make. And here, with The Art of Loving, the answers really astonished us all. It surprised us all because it was really well known. It was a well known. The director, they said, oh, it's about the huge Catholic sin because she baptized this child and it wasn't hers. And we really didn't have that in mind. No, we said, okay, Marysia understands Wisłocka, she will work great with Magda, she understands it, and we made a very SWOT analysis, a very simple one, and in threads we included low experience. And I remember that today said, okay, no, we did the Gods, we'll help Marysia, there will be Michał Sobociński, everybody will be there and will manage. Okay, we all survived that, but now I know that it would be much easier for all of us if we did not treat that so lightly. Hooray, we'll do it, but truly and transparently talked with Marysia and ourselves, it would be much easier and much better as a result. There was a lot of nerves, of course, but it's always with everything. But the final cut at the early stage, when we said, okay, in this timeline, this budget, and this is the final cut, is our decision because we invited you to this project, because we as producers have to collect the money. We have to convince those people that we will have a good film, and if we have a good film, they will get a return on investment, and they would in consequence want to cooperate with us further. But if we tell them it will be like that, and you do whatever you like, and this film it won't work, these people will never give us money anymore. So this final cut is our decision. But Jakub Piątek came to us, and Łukasz came to us and said, it's my idea. The Coldest Game is our idea. They said, okay, it's our idea, and what now? And now it's a totally different discussion. It's a different discussion with Kuba Piątek, who's a beginner in the beginning of the road, and Łukasz was, I mean, let's say he was 40 plus, who's an authority in commercial world. He's a cinematographer. He's a totally different ways of an athlete, so to speak. It was a totally different negotiation. One of them was a shareholder, so he didn't get a fee, and the other one understood that why final cut has to be on our side. And the other one disagreed, but he said, let's treat focus groups as recommendations, and that's how it happened. That's no secret. It was in the case of prime time. It was not a mass cinema, and so focus groups do not give us anything apart from us understanding what commentaries we will get in film web from the people 30 plus. We know we have the same problems with that film as 30 plus people, and suddenly we have people who are 20 plus and 30 plus. How do we meet together? Because we represent that group and they represent this group, and it's a generational difference. It's not enough that this guy is like this and this and this, and we say, okay, this spoiled brat who thinks he should get everything, he doesn't have a lot of motivation for this. We do not understand his motivation. We need some to understand it. No, they want to develop with that character emotionally. It was a very interesting case because the older audience judged Bielenia very low and the girls very high, and the other audience is like, I mean, I heard we heard it for the first time. That was fantastic. That if Bielenia is in the film, it will be a good film. Yeah, in the United States it happens, but that Tom Cruise is for this and that. In Poland, that somebody said it has to be a good film because Bielenia is there. We've never heard that in our focus groups before. Only Bielenia got this star from the young people. He's the synonym of quality. He's the emblem of quality. I have a question concerning the focus groups and the sliders. The third slider is outstanding and mediocre, and you have this slider going more to the left. And is it important for you that the viewers see it as outstanding or mediocre? No, it's a mistake. It should be the other way around. Now I noticed it. Is it not important? It is important. Yes, the most important parameter is to whom you would refer that, you would recommend that film. And here it's a bad translation. Let's move on. What is the film about? Is the Coldest Game? I prepared all these three films as a team talent, how it was formed, start concept, what was our idea behind this, which were the problems, the challenges, what was the business model, budget, challenge, and what was the end result of the situation. Because we were moving around the topics, I just wanted to sort of summarize all this and ask me questions if I forgot about something. With Coldest Game, for obvious reasons, that was a challenge after the Art of Loving and the Gods, to make a film in Poland in English. We believe that we will never stop struggling with Polish distribution unless we go further out in the field. And I thought that if we go out further in the field, we can suggest a good film for good money. And that was the first assumption. And the second one, we have to have an American star as a protagonist, and we had like 3.5 or 4 years to get the casting, because we had to pay a huge money. If you do not use if you do it for the first time, you have to go through everything. First, you have the greedy American agents who would not pick up the phone if you will not transfer several $1,000s. We said no, we can't do that. Then you will never get anything done. Then the daughter of some very well-known American director, she will get someone for no money. A year later, she got nothing. But yes, she would have to have money. If the film will get into production, she will have to be on the credits, and you have to send her so much money. And this is unfortunately so. You will notice that in many American or European production in English, you have those executive producers, like several of them, and they're quite often the agents who just touched the script for a second and said, no, it would be better than this. They passed it on, but then I said, now you can't do it without us because our input was such. So this is a lesson for all of you. Always think before you send out, because we do not have this practice that if you send the script to me, I said, no, sorry, it's better if you work on this protagonist. And remember that I read the script, so you have to write executive producer, and you have to pay this fee, because it's a burden on the project. In accumulation, they cannot be created, because they have like a number of producers. Each one of them has to have a credit and $50,000. So at the end of the day, you have an accumulation of the amount that goes to nothing good. So we paid a lot. We had a lot of meetings that took ages, it took years. It didn't work out until we went to Berlinale, and we met 4 German producers. We were looking for German producers with experience in the United States, and we met Daniel Bauer. They had a company in Los Angeles for some time, and they decided that economically it won't work, so they can do the same in Europe. But from their perspective, the American market is based on relations with agencies. These are the 4 big talent agencies, and they decide whether you will get the actor or not, whether your film will be success or not. You will get the director, etc., etc. And here, this shortcut was a salvation, because quite quickly after 3 months from our short list of names, William Hart confirmed. He said he's interested. It happened. The director had to go to Los Angeles. They went to the zoo to talk about the protagonist, which animal would be the first protagonist if the director were to choose. And after all these long talks, William said, oh yes, he will come to Poland. During the first lunch, he said he hates producers, so it's nothing against them, but that's his point of view on all the producers, and we're a band of thieves. So it was very nice. And 3 days before we started the shooting, he asked me if we ever made a recast of a star before this filming set, and I said no, we never had such experience. But if we have no choice, then we proved many things in our lives that we're able to manage. And on the 5th filming day, before the 5th filming day, because we started day at 2 p.m. and then he had an accident. He slipped and fell, and for us the world stopped, because he was supposed to play the whole day. We, after transported him to the hospital, we went with Piotr to the film set, and we said there will be no star, we have to change everything with the director so not to lose it, and that we'll come back with some communication in the afternoon. And then really that was a huge crisis, because the agent of Williams, he said that he has nobody available right now. Oh no, there's one guy, but 4 times the amount of money William wanted to take. So you have to make the decision now because we had 10 minutes. So thankfully we did not agree to that. Of course, it was a blackmail. They wanted to use the occasion. They can sell us somebody who was jobless in the States, but that would destroy our film. And the film was insured, so we said there's no main character. We have to settle the settlement. But then Daniel again called them, and we got 3 actors in the same money available who could get the text. We said send it to them, let them read that, because each one of them could say no. So all this trick with replacing William, I think William had his accident on Wednesday. Bill was on Monday in Poland. Bill on Friday called Łukasz. Based on Daniel's guarantees, we bought him the flight ticket. We were afraid if he will come, it was a lot of money, but he came to Poland, he signed a contract in Poland, but the whole trick was that William's contract was negotiated over a year, and we could do that only because it was the same agency. So if you had the same agency, we just changed the name and the surname, and their contract the difference was that William was single, Bill had a wife, so we had to all the tickets had to be doubled. We had very little time for adaptation. We made a short break, and we had to reshoot the beginning, so we didn't have the time to edit it, to take. I mean, we have time to go through the material and to draw conclusions, which almost never happens. So that was the biggest trick during the Coldest Game, because the team talents, the whole configuration was such that Łukasz came to us with a text and with a script and with a DOP. He said, I know this guy, I'm also a DOP, I would like Paweł Edelman to be our DOP. Of course, we agreed to that because it was a great honor to work with Paweł Edelman, and he's like a huge authority in the business, and it also could helped us convince people to make a film about chess during the Cold War time. It was not so attractive for everybody. So for Paweł Edelman apart from Paweł Edelman and Łukasz Koźmiński, another person we wanted to invite we wanted to invite Alan Starsky, and that was a great honor that such person would work with us, because the challenge for no budget at all and you know, for building New York in Warsaw, which was a requirement for this film, he was key for that, and he was the key. And if we had once we had the trio, Łukasz, Paweł Edelman, and Alan Starsky, then the interest of Hollywood actors was different. We had totally different destinations, you know, different from the situation when two boys from Poland wanted to make an international film. This changed a lot. This configuration was extremely important in terms of this project. I think we would fail to get the actor otherwise. Another slide. Yes, exactly. Ewa Gronowska is added here. We worked with her with The Art of Loving and The Gods. We were thrilled with her. It's very important to have production design and costume design cooperating very closely at this stage. I told you about the replacement of William Hurt by Bill Pullman. And here our last production. I think I wanted to tell you more about on the grounds of different productions we took part in. That is, the Art of Loving was the most classical lineup with the Polish Film Institute with no different twist. The Coldest Game was like a Polish input, but with a much higher budget and much more complex puzzle because of the US. And Apokawixa was our first film we made on order, on somebody else's orders. We took the challenge. We were invited to the project that was not created by us. It was an external project. The partner had this dilemma or the challenge, how to deal with it themselves, and then we were invited to cooperate in June last year. It was supposed to start to get on screens on the 1st of September 2020, but because of the there was a boom in shooting films after the pandemic, and and all the specialists were totally busy in that time. So it was a huge challenge. In terms of teams and talents, this was a director-based project. The director was invited by the station to have the project. So it was supposed. Xavery convinced the station for it to work. We have to have zombies, and the station says, "Well, let's make zombie." They submitted to the institute, but the institute did not give a donation for that. So it stopped for 8-9 months, and Xavery is a kind of director and author, because Xavery is working also with us within Watchout. He was the creative producer of The Art of Loving. He had his input in all our films, and right now he's also taking part as also my whatever I do it with Xavery. We're working closer and closer, and that was a project which was inside of him, and it was very difficult for him to move on until that zombie happens. We're working with him on the next 2 projects, and we were still coming back to that zombie. So we said, okay, let that happen. We started to talk, and the station said, if this is a configuration like you plus station, but it will happen, but you will have to shoot in September. So we decided to postpone the shooting. We changed the script. We collected the team. The team was very strong because they cooperated with the director on many films already. And the biggest challenge was the project itself, the first Polish zombie movie, and to make the zombie movie and not to get just the original laughs. So Marian Prokop and Xavery, I've heard about them for ages, but I could see that for the first time in practice on the set, and I'm absolutely convinced, because we still have other projects in this configuration. I think this is where we weren't prepared enough in here. Do not make films, do not develop films 2 months before the filming set. Half a year is the minimum. It's very difficult, but they've managed. They drew all the key drawings, and then these drawings on the set were like, it was a salvation, because when we had very limited,
30 na 31 dni my zrobiliśmy
very little
zdjęcia
money,
na
very little time, we're tight on time, and we did that in 31 days.
palcach to przejść. A film, żeby był wykonany tak, jak myśmy się czuli komfortowo, to pewnie 40.
Probably,
40 dni.
yes, we
Ale
would.
wtedy zaczynamy już zaglądać w mechanikę tego wszystkiego.
I mean, when you look at the finances and the mechanics and all of this, you will not have a 45. If you have 45 filming days, you will not get the viewership in Poland to get that. I can't tell you because there is no Film Institute donation the grant, so I can't tell you. But Maria Skrajnowska debuted in production design three weeks before the shooting starts. So if you would want to have a great set designer who really can move mountains, she never made a film or TV show before. She's working in commercials. She's very experienced, but she prepared a film in less than a month, and that was incredible. And costumes were prepared by Anna Englert.
To mówiliśmy sobie o challenge'u jako pierwszy.
We're talking about this challenge, the first Polish zombie movie. And here I wanted to tell you how we always look at these projects and how watchout they are. It's not as precise as I would want to, but the assumption was that the yellow things are where you have watchout, the white are the external things. So with the Art of Loving, Watchout came up with the concept, they was responsible for production and the film distribution. Because that's also an interesting thing I was not telling you about yet today. Not only working with the distributor consists in promotion and P&A and MG, but also in selling the license. And this is also a thing that that's one, for us it's one film for 3 years, for them it's one of the several dozens a year. This also relates to further selling at the further levels of distribution of that film, of the late life of the film. Quite often the distributors, once they packaged, they took weak films with big films and they sold for the average, so the weak film could earn more money, but the good film was losing a lot. So in case of The Art of Loving or The Gods, after packaging them with other movies, because I understand that such gods in TVN or in other stations had to be very watchable. They had great commercial times, and for how much it will be sold for its further life also determines our fate as producers and production companies, because these licenses allow us to survive at the moments when we're in between productions, and Watchout does it alone. We always leave the door open for ourselves. It's also a matter of negotiating with the distributor. This freed us in case of prime time. If we did not have the experience with Art of Loving and The Gods, we would not have that gate open. We had that gate open with that we could buy out the film. You have to negotiate it. You have to remember that in advance. Of course, the distributors always have those tables with streamers, and you will always have less there than you would sell directly, because there's a human factor, there are emotions between us. But if these are just distributors that are transferring tables between themselves, this amount can be less. And I do agree, but with the Songs of Love, I did not have enough experience. And the strong backing of someone, because the first amounts that were offered to me by the stations, but they were very low, and I had this feeling that if I'm a debuting producer with a small company who's doing something in VR, this is my first title, I need to have this distributor who would give me more confidence of what this film is. That's what I felt. Maybe today I would be able to do it differently. That's why, because when we spoke about those amounts today, I decided that this is all the question you said of negotiation. I said speculation. There is no clear answer how I got to that stage after 4 years of working in the industry. That everything is fluid and everything is negotiable. I suddenly felt a bit of a fear, but excitement at the same time. That maybe you have to develop that strength in yourself and confidence to throw the big amounts around. This is accumulation because on one hand I feel I really don't like it that we do not share more as producers between ourselves, that we do not communicate. It's a huge problem in Poland. Polish Guild of Producers, KIPA. The first thing I did when I entered, because we had a philosophy with Piotr that we do not get engaged, because we believe that it's a world we found like the status quo, and we do not have to share everything. We'll learn something, we'll pay the price, but we'll be always on the aside. And then I had to go to KIPA after his death. I had to go to KIPA, to PGP. I said, this is what we thought. The world is different today. I will not criticize you from the outset because I'm not happy what's happening. I will get engaged, and then I hope I will not have to criticize you. After all these years, I can tell you, because I really got engaged. I made a lot for those organizations, and today I say, no, it's still a big pain for me that you have such problems, that I did not share that with you, that we haven't discussed it. How should we talk to platforms today? That I tell my producer friends, well, Netflix came first time, and we already knew them, but they came, they invited everybody to a hotel, everybody had their half an hour. What all we, the producers, did, we run that with all our best ideas, with all our budgets, and in one day, they knew the whole Polish market. The average, what's there, what's not there, what's worth it, what's not worth it, who will do something. Because what will be done in Poland if it goes to the competition, whether it's going to be hit or not, how to... I mean, it's incredible. I don't know any other industry where everybody go there and share all their information. And Netflix asks, will you sign an NDA? No, there are no NDAs. But they have the whole information. And I say, we will never improve our situations as the producers if we will not start to talk them differently. Let's say, thank you for inviting us. First, meeting with the Polish Guild on how, what are the conditions we would also want to work, we all would like to work with you. First, how many hours we would like to work with you. And this is a discussion where my point of view is that let's fulfill our own ideas. Let's not work on weekends, let's not work overtime. That would be perfect, because we all have families, we have friends, we would like to spend time differently. But we can talk about it when you work for Western corporations, Discovery, Netflix, Canal Plus, others. Yes, if we're working in order, yes, but if we're doing for our own portfolio, it's so difficult to fulfill those requirements that you won't be able to do those things, because they will be 30% more expensive. I won't be able to do that unless for the platforms, and then it's all changing. So I think this is the first big problem, that we're not communicating between ourselves, and that's why we're being played by all the players, the broadcasters, the platforms, and the cinema distributors, because it should be this huge discussion. What should be, how much who earns what at the end of the day. I know exactly what the box office result was and how much my company was rewarded for this. Where did all this money go? It went, of course, to the distributors and cinema owners. Maybe the next slide, please. Oh, this is the end. So I'm open to your questions. I don't know. It's a question without an answer. Maybe a sort of a reflection for a longer time. I think there should be some idea. What should we do with the distributors? How do we change? How do we impact or influence the distributor? Because from what you say, it looks a bit... How? It looks like those operators on the airport, in the airport traffic control. They're like a mafia that you cannot budge. How can you influence them? I know it would be difficult to answer this question now, because you have to do something about it. I think it's changing naturally because of the platforms. The world moves on, and because as long as there is no one single path, we do have a distributor, we have to go to the cinema, because as long as we have to, it won't change, because then we would have to go to the system where the producers will become cinema distributors. Axon tried that. They bought some person from one company, they were a distributor for some time, they introduced something in the cinema, but they pulled out very quickly. This is not as easy as it would look like from, and that you have like two people, and you can invite, you could make your own film distribution. No, this is a business in which I don't know it as well, and I can't speak from the point of view of authority, but how to change it. But I think it is changing because of the possibilities, because of what's happening in the market. That Netflix, for example, with its presence, makes us choose between a secure return on investment and some risk in the cinema. So if we have a film for fixed fee, I can very quickly calculate how many viewers I need in a cinema to get that result, and I can say if it's realistic or not. And I can say that it's much safer for me to go with the platforms, not with the cinema owners. So how can you support cinemas with the distributors that you have right now? I don't know the answer to that. I think it's also the question to the Polish viewer who's tired. You can look at it from different perspectives. I, as a viewer, I can tell you that I'm tired with Polish cinema because I can feel cheated because most of the quality is really horrible, and art house is also, it's heavy for me, it's tough for me, hard for me as the viewer, and I'm being left alone. It's 1 to 5 Polish titles I can watch over the year with more fun than anything from the West, but it's the minority. So in a way, we have to talk to our viewers but in a way that is transparent, that is sincere. So what can we offer them so that they would be happy as they were able to see before the pandemics? After the pandemics, if you look at top 10 Polish movies, what are their results and which films are these? Unfortunately, this is one way down, unfortunately. I'm really a big proponent of changes. The more options we have of configuration we can do with Amazon, with Viaplay, with Institute, with somebody else. These partners between themselves are different. Netflix does not co-produce so far. They either order from the scratch or they buy after some sort of window. But if some other people, to be competitive against them, they start to enter some sort of configurations. You have Canal Plus, which bought Kino Świat, the distributor. I believe there have to be some relations that everybody should be open to discussion how to do it well. But in today's dry world of production, so we start with an idea, we have an idea, we go to the distributor. It's really difficult with those partners. If we're talking about the standard we should expect as the producers to when we accept such a responsibility. I think this is about this, that the distributor has too much power. I can't tell you how to change it. There are people who are more experienced than me and wiser than me. Okay, I have a question, because we are all here, the majority of us are young producers, and in many meetings like that, people talk about financing. And we are being encouraged to enter international co-productions so that this European market is so that we look at it in a broader way and we'll be more competitive. And I don't know, do you have any experience with that? How to work with producers who from outside of Poland and to struggle together in this field? Well, never had this big experience in international cooperation. We had one service for a US company, but we were hired to make certain tasks in Poland. But recently I have this conclusions after my discussions with the distributors who do big things, that it is a discussion that we do not co-produce enough between ourselves. It's not about international co-production is that if you think about it well, everybody has their upsides, strong sides in different fields, which doesn't mean that you have to do this film alone. Because if we got together in three and you said, you have a great script, you have great actors, and I know to whom I can sell it, then for credit and fee, we'll be able to do that. But why don't we do such things in our country? Well, yesterday we had a discussion with Ewa Puszczyńska that there are no master systems, so we're learning everything for too long a time, because instead of doing the movies, because there is a fear, of course, because we've been hearing about that for the year, because we've been hearing that it's very difficult to learn. It's very difficult to get information, and the film crew get like huge money. The fees for the people are, and then I look at my own money. The one I say, well, you see, this is the basic problem. We as producers, we do not earn enough in this process. Each one of us. This is the problem. I always talk about it with Ewa Puszczyńska, with Aneta Higgins, and with many producers who make big things, and we never earn enough to manage to support our companies for the future. It's a systemic problem. They say, well, you cost too much. No, because if the film crew earn that much, even if the fee of the producer is here and not there, something is wrong with the system, and this has to be changed. We have to talk about it. I spoke with Ewa Puszczyńska about that concerning our co-production, because this is something I really would want to encourage you to. Do not lock yourselves in your camps. Do not fight for yourself. I. Do things together. Together, everything will work better in our times. Among all of us at every level. Because if you two came to me and you said, we have the script, we have this and that, but we miss this, then it's just one more small thing we have to find, and everything will click together. And we can also know people who can help you with certain situations. We try to do everything at once. We try to be artists. We want to be in the casting, in final cut, sell, buy, get the money, get the budget. But how many competences in one person can you have? That's why we have so many people in the company, because it's easier for us. It's everybody's individual approach. But whenever I don't feel well enough, I need two people who are really good. I do not need to feel well in what I'm doing. That's why we have Xaver, Justyna Pawlak, two production directors. When we feel better in that configuration, I can be sure that they will produce it, and within the budget, I have to find this budget for them and agree that this is the story we have to follow. And if this is the right story, Xaver will tell me, asking me all the questions why what he said, this should be like this should be like that, this shouldn't end like this, because what would be the end result? And all together we can combine it and do something. How many of you are working on the project starting from point zero until it's completed? These are like 8 years of your life, the years of time you will not get back. I have two more questions. The first refers to your last film, in which you were the executive producer. Could you tell us more about this model of because yesterday we spent a whole day to come up with a definition of different producers. We all know that it's a question. There are no hard and fast rules and definitions. What did that look like in your company? And the second question, I might be wrong, but Kuba Razowski and his prime time, you had this relation. Kuba is the producer of the film. Could you tell us a bit more about the behind the scenes of that movie, of how this movie was made? There was a producer with a director, and you made this film together, right? Yes. It wasn't exactly like this, because Kuba Razowski, we met when we were working on Art of Loving with Robert Feluch, and Kuba was one of his key persons, and Robert is one of the biggest authorities as executive producers, which means that the biggest TV shows, the biggest movies usually go through their hands. And Kuba was his pupil who wanted to go out and search for his career, and we invited him as a Watchout, as a head of production. We knew that finding people in the market just before the movie is a really bad idea. And this we experienced such a situation in Apokawixa when a month before we entered the set, we had to get the head of production, and that was a very difficult thing. So Kuba is one of our students and co-workers who was he helped us with the Coldest Game. He was developing Prime Time at the same time. He was learning to finally be our, when he was developing the project with Kuba Piątek, and they said, we have this project, we want to have it. First it was submitted to Venice. We want to have a 1 hour movie film. Yeah, that was this competition, 150. That's how Prime Time started. We said, oh wow, that's great. Apply, try. They got there, they didn't finally get the money, but then we had to make a decision. Are we making this film or not? Kuba is working for Netflix right now. Yeah, I will get to that. Because the final story was that we agreed. And then Piotr was not there, the pandemic started, and we made the parameters with Kuba and said, Kuba, you make your debut as a producer, but you're staying in the company as a head of production. Yes, I'm developing the projects. Yes, but when we got the debut of Primetime, I think, there are not too many proposals you cannot reject. For Kuba, for him, it was a proposal not to reject from Netflix, to be one of the top P decision makers in there and producers of several TV shows a year. I mean, I accepted his decision, and I went through my bad times for 3 months, and it was a difficult moment for that. It would be difficult to find somebody who would fill the gap, and right now we have that person. I'm really happy, and he's a foundation of our production. So because such production houses always have to have the head of production internally, who is able to quickly sketch out the budgets and make the production, etc. So that was that was Kuba with us. And so the other question was about Apokawixa, how it worked. We signed the contract with Watchout Discovery. It is formulated in such a way in the contract. Production of Watchout Studio ordered by TVN. We became the executive producer. We start from the budget. We agreed to a certain percentage of the budget that this is our fee. And the same, it works the same with Apokawixa. And it works the same with Netflix. Here the situation we had, the budget was calculated, there was application to the institute, and it was a simple message. This is how it works. Can you do that? We wanted so much to do it that we agreed, and then we regretted that a lot. In many things that we negotiated in our history, here you had to negotiate. We did not negotiate them. We accepted that we really wanted to make that film, that nothing counted. Everything has to requires cold blood and level head. In the context of what the stations are selling, this is a question of timing, the moment. That your film had great reviews, and the people were so happy, and I mean, so happy with your film. This is the moment when you have to sell it. If you sell it before, nobody will believe it. And these offers differ by order of magnitude. This is a horrible thing in our industry, that timing is key. Sometimes you have to go through an extreme pressure because you will think nothing will happen, and you have this offer, but today you have a lot of addresses you have to look for. It's not that somebody's coming to us and saying, hey, we're Disney, we're Apple, and we want your film. No, nobody applies to us. Amazon, okay, wrote to us, but otherwise nobody comes to us, which means that you have to go around and knock the doors and read virtual media. Okay, Disney is recruiting someone, they would have someone, they have someone, hey, we're here, we have such idea, maybe you will need something like this. And then it occurs that these partners, the new partners who are just starting out, have the best needs today, because they're most behind those who are already in the race for 3-4 years. So my recommendation for young producers: do not go where everyone is. Go where everyone has not been, or where they will when the queues will already start. There are like 3 addresses like that over the last year, and there will be 2 more in the nearest future. You will get to know those people in a year, 2 years, etc. It will be much easier to talk to those people.
Jakie dwa jeszcze podmioty wchodzą?
Which two other units and
Na
entities
pewno wchodzi ten
enter?
Paramount
Well,
Show, to
Paramount
jest ta
Show.
cała kombinacja Paramount Showtime. Oni też
The
będą
Paramount
dawali
Showtime, and they will be spending money in Poland, absolutely. Amazon is getting more and more engaged. Disney is quite fresh.
Nic o tym mi nie wiadomo. Nic mi o tym nie wiadomo. Na pewno ze szkodą. Wiem, że były takie przymiarki, ale...
I don't know, but to the detriment, I don't think it worked out. Viaplay. Well, referring to your first slide, you said that you had 3 legs: there's TV shows, features, and commercials. I wanted to ask you, what is the percentage of the feature films and which TV shows you did in what time? Percentage of what? The revenue and engagement, time engagement, etc. Every production house is an abstract or individual company. Everybody's looking for different things. You're looking names for different definitions, and we're looking for the best way for our company. What is the best for our current configuration? What does it mean that we have such a system? That I'm a producer too, and the person who's running the company every day. That means only that I need to be in every project, and I'm also in the TV show, in every commercial. I'm listening to what's happening. Every 3 days we have like commercial summaries. We make statistics, because the biggest difference is that business is divided into short-term, long-term. Commercial is short-term. The more nervous and most emotional thing. It's like fireworks, and the movie is a very, very long-term process. Before we start the idea, before we develop it, we start financing, we enter the set, we get to the premiere. The series, paradoxically, which is more expensive, longer, it's being done quicker, because right now we're at the stage. This is also an official information, so I can talk about it. We're finishing a big series for Netflix over 80 shooting days. And that takes about half a year of our lives. And since we got the order to the completion of the film, it's like 1 year to 1.5 years. It's a huge beast, but in comparison to the film, we want to we'll get finished in 2 years. But we've been working on this for 4 years already. It's like midterm activity. Every project has its own producer, regardless of whether it's commercial, feature, or TV show. I'm the supervisor, and I'm producing myself sometimes too, and I collect people who are supervising me. I also always ask in those elements in which I'm weaker. I did not graduate from a film school, and I had to learn a lot of things on the go, and there are always elements in which I need more, and I need more than the head of production, but then I also can support a head of production in his work. So it's very difficult to tell you in percentage. I don't know how to answer that. Everybody's 100% busy in the tasks. My time is divided in that. One day usually I spend on commercials. This TV shows, I have a very experienced producer. Every film had its moment of crisis management. We never had a film that everything went like a dream. If not an actor, there will be a quarrel, a struggle. Like there are like hundreds of people or thousands of people every film. You can't be naive that you will be able to manage that without crisis. There's always crisis. The gist is in the solution. In the series, I'm only for crisis management if I'm needed to that producer, and at early stages, so negotiating the contracts, whether we accept this and that within such parameters. As a producer, I'm most engaged in TV shows, but only because this will be my first TV show I'll make as a producer, because it will be a feature film that will transfer, so rewrote into TV show. And I want to get this experience. And business-wise, look what are the budgets right now for the TV shows versus the difficulty of getting money for the film. Because you can see that you can earn much more on the TV show than on a blockbuster. this is what I'm trying to explain to the cinema owners, that the producers like us, we say we had, like, in 2014 we had the #1 hit in box office, The Gods. In those parameters, I can earn more money on a single TV show than on Gods. So what's my interest as a producer, and to fight for 3 years for financing of something that might not be this, and there's only one such film in the year. So what's my interest in making features and not TV shows? It's great that you talk about it. And I have another question, maybe more or less private. We were talking about other ways. So I wonder, which postgrad did you finish with, Piotr? Because people from different environments got together, they psychology, journalism, etc., etc. Do you need, and also my other question, do you need to have a strong economist in your team, like a total businessman behind your back? And it's not always like this in Poland. Well, it always helps. These are business ventures. These are all business ventures, and it's not really spoken out loudly. This is job. This is business venture. The more we have somebody in our corner who's financially literate, the better. I also learning that for the first time as a manager, I have a first financial director, because we had this honest discussion. We grew with this company. We never worked in companies which had the turnover that we have right now. We never managed such a revenue. So we had to discuss, what do we know about that? We don't know anything. So it means we know somebody who knows. And we got a person on board, and it's a singular experience for me. It's a person from a totally different world. And he said, I have to transfer whatever you do into numbers. And you have to tell from the very outset, and he started to translate that into numbers. And when they translate that, suddenly he has like a cornucopia of conclusions that we cannot work with even. I mean, we cannot tackle with it. I mean, if I know that something costs us X, I will bring the 2X. I will not see if that can be saved upon, because I can know that I have to bring new stuff all the time. But if I have somebody in the team who can slash the costs, that my strategy at some point of going forward will allow us to do more, to invest more in people and projects. So I think this is always valuable. What was your first question again? Oh yeah, the postgrad. We never studied together. We met through our hobbies, not related to movies. I was studying this psychology of business, postgrad. It was after my legal education, it was something great for me. I have a very concrete question. How much do you work a day? How many hours a week? I know that it's important, a lot. And how much time do you devote to the company, the business? I mean, managing the business. The tax refunds, operations, blah blah blah. Or do you have somebody from the outside? These are one that was, the taxation, tax refunds, blah blah blah. We have our own accountant who's 100% responsible for that. We have monthly summaries, monthly reports, cash flow, blah blah. But I also have individual meetings with them every 2 weeks. With that number of people, and with the fact that one of the members of the board was responsible for the taxes and finances, I'm not really engaged in that. I'm a father of 3. I have a dog, a company, and I have my own passions. So unfortunately, there's not too much time for my private things in my life, but I always take care to sleep 8 hours a day, because without 8 hours a day, everything starts to fall apart. And I've been working from the moment when I start, because it's also difficult today that when I enter the company 9:50 and then I leave 6:30, 6:45. I'm trying to be before 8 to be with my kids when they go to sleep, and on weekends, and I'm there. However, I would never measure it from door to door, from doorbell to doorbell, because whenever I open my eyes, I check emails, I'm checking the magazines to be up to date, and I'm calling and receiving phones. It's always a question of health and safety, how you should take care. I'm trying to turn to person. I stop answering phones after on weekends, because people get used to it that it's not worth calling calling you on weekends. If it's something important, they will write a short message. You have to respect yourself and your mental health, and you will get nowhere.
Czy na przykład w tym wszystkim dbasz też, czy posiadłeś...
In all this, do you also have this possibility of managing your emotions? You have to have this freshness in making decisions, but also on the artistic level. So that these decisions have the right quality, so that they are not in the corridor, like that I like do the same thing all over.
Uczę się cały czas. Nie mogę powiedzieć, że mam receptę, podzielę się chętnie z wami. Nie mam. Uczę się.
I'm learning.
Uczę się
I'm learning
sam przez siebie i przez obserwację innych. Widzę swoich kolegów.
Because I have to. I see my friends from the industry. I know that they, for example, got record results in September, but I don't remember their name right now. Justyna, I can see Justyna after 80 days, and it's not the same girl who entered 80 days before. After completing of the shooting, she has to go for 2-week vacation, because otherwise you won't be able to talk to her. I don't take vacations, for example. My conclusion for this year is that I need more vacation. I need to, and then I can close certain things, go on vacation, and then come back. I have to separate things. It's very difficult for me not to be in the same emotions, not to transfer them from one project to another. We had a premiere. Let's say we had a premiere, and I have to sort of get detached, get vacation because emotionally I'm still in that project. A technical question. Do you have any sort of field of interest when it comes to scripts? That's my first question. And the second one, is it something like selection of the scripts? Let's say I'm sending a treatment and I'm 38th in the queue, and I hope that in 2.5 months somebody will read it and will answer me. First, let me start from the profile. The profile is, well, there is no single key. We're not looking for romantic comedies or horrors or something else. Maybe we're always interested in genre cinema. We like genre cinema as a profile. It's good if there's entertainment, and it's better if it's wise entertainment, not stupid entertainment. This is how we're trying to direct our movies. If you look at our movies, you can see that they sort of tick those boxes. And it's above all, it's an engaging story with good characters. This is something that I can answer at this moment, because we do not have a definition. When it comes to the system of accepting the projects, we're developing and changing. We've been experimenting through the years. We had the head of development who's working in Netflix right now. Before that, we had another very well-known scriptwriter who was the head of development. We had mixed results. Right now, hoping from the next year that the head of development, because we'll have Xavery as the head of development, and he has 2 people, one scriptwriter and one person, a production coordinator, and in the trio they're reading all the texts that we receive. But I'm still not really happy with that, and also I have at least 12-15 texts that I should read as soon as possible, and I'm not able to do that, because the time is, the day is just that long. I love treatments. I really love treatments. If the story is in the treatment, then I love it, and I ask for the script. But quite often it's either not getting in a script to something that is breakthrough, because after 30 pages I have so many texts. If nothing grips me here for such a long time, that I'm looking then I'm moving to something else.
Od 10 do 20 preferujemy. Ale jak ktoś napisze na 5 czy 8,
We prefer 10 to 12.
Dokładnie, to się do tego sprowadza.
But if something
Mikrofon pan prosi.
Yeah, we're behind time. Maybe last question.
Jestem śmiało.
I'm here, so
chcecie więcej, to jeżeli o mnie chodzi, to nie ma regulacji. Nie wiem, jakie wy macie plany.
Tak, to ja się chciałam zapytać właśnie, w którym momencie...
I wanted to ask you at what level the head of production starts to work, the executive producer, and I understand that you have right now a full-time head of production, and what does it look like? And just because we're developing, we do not have a stable model that I could tell you like that it's like this and that, because it's a new person that joined us for a concrete project, but meanwhile we had needs in another project. We've managed to learn one another, and now we can start another stage. But quite often we're also trying to make budgeting for a different thing, or cost budgeting. We're trying to introduce as late as possible, because of course this is not good, because the earlier you can do it, you can save on certain things. But later means a year, or as late as possible means a year before the shooting starts. We're not trying to engage people too early, but at some point we need a verification, like a brutal production like verification. How will you divide that into calendar? How many days? What's the budget from your perspective? And then we can see, oh fuck, no, we won't be able to sell that like this. So what are our common decisions? How can we discuss about it? How can we get out of this big scene? How can we think about production? Because we'll do this, you can do that. We will not make 5 scenes a day, because you can have max 3, 4, because we won't be able to do that. So these stages of working with the production, with heads of production, we would need to production managers. We would need to have them in place, on site in the company.
Okazało się, że teraz mamy tyle pracy w tych różnych projektach, że
It occurred that we have so much work at the moment that we have a lot of work in other things. I have a question concerning treatments and mock-ups and other ideas.
To jest ludzie na poziomie zaufania?
Are people sort of trusting you and sending you there, or is it some legally settled? Do you have an NDA? No, we have no problems with NDAs. Quite the contrary. We ask for NDA, so it's honest both ways. But people, when they sell text, 1 in 30 asks some sort of NDA. But I also think that when it's sent by mail to a production house, if we stole somebody's ideas, I think it's very easy to prove in code that it was sent to you this and that. Here and here, you're a company doing this. You had this idea. You even answered, or you said, or you've met with me. Yes. So stealing ideas in this industry does not pay. And a general question about building this financial breakup. What lures investors the most? Is it the story, the director, the cast? I would love to tell you that it's the director, the cast, the production. That would be a nice thing to say. That if we have these guys, it's going to be safe. From my experience, I can say that it's the story, the protagonist and the story. And if we're talking about the financing, these references to analogous success, it's not that we will be a copy of something that will got us 2 million people, but if you want a super spy, we have to say that James Bond got 1.5 million viewers in Polish cinemas, and it's not just James Bond, but it was a spy story. They have to feel the successes, the previous successes, to believe that it can be a success. The whole trap of this process is that quite often people who give you money for the film as producers, they work in corporations, and right now you have to remember always that they do not have something, any fee from your success, but your failure can cost them their job. So you have to convince them to take up this risk. Why should they invest in film? you have to have some empathy to the other person. That it's his job. He pays for his bills with that. And when he hears, I should do what?
Zwolnią mnie. Ja
They will kick me out. They will fire me. He will never look. Okay, I will get this. I will get that. No, because in the majority of cases, they do not get a fee for success fee. If they do not have a success fee, they have nothing to win. They have everything to lose. And that's the conundrum. How do you come up with a situation when you talk to a situation who has nothing to win and everything to lose? How to convince them to take this risk? So that's where all the tricks have to be invested. I have this question. I'm not referring to the movies from your production house, but my reflection is a general reflection that I have. If, for example, you're saying that potential investors are redrawn by the story, not names. Why is it so that when we watch Polish movies, I have a déjà vu because I see the same faces over and over again? I can't answer that because the producers quite often make these decisions about employing the casting director or an actor or somebody who likes this actor on that actor because they work together, they spend lives together, they grow up together, and I think this is the biggest result. Despite many friendships and a lot of love in that industry, we're trying to separate these things. That's why Xaver is the exception to the rule, which confirms the rule. He will be the person who will, because every movie is a random thing from the outset. It's not that Tomek Kot played the protagonist in The Gods. He will not play in all our films. However, we always suggest to him episodes in other films, but he will not be our stalwart cash cow. We need to have a film for him that will be working for him, but we will not be warping the reality to adapt that to the actors or somebody from the crew. Why it happens like that in Poland, I don't know. Why all those producers come to the meeting in Netflix and one they tell about how much they pay for what? I don't know. We're living in such a country at such a stage. I believe it's gonna change. It's gonna be better. I think we have to finish soon. Thank you. It was very nice to meet you and talk to you.